so it's Owning Your Fire, February the 8th, 2017.
Mhm. So I'll go quiet now, Trish.
Okay.
Okay.
Holly, let us know if you sort out the sound or if you're still having trouble. Ah, it's in the headphones. Okay. You might want to restart the computer because sometimes that sorts things out. You have a few minutes. We love technology and we get frustrated by technology. I put a lozenge in my mouth and then I had a drink and I swallowed the lozenge like it was a pill. That's hilarious. Okay, let's get another lozenge. And Holly, let us know when you have liftoff. I want to know how Holly is doing before I start. Give her a few minutes. Hi, Allison. Tony, Estrella, and Margot at Margot's place. Cool. Yay, Margot, you got technology working. Does that mean you guys have sound now? Ladies, I'm just waiting for Holly to confirm that they have sound. You're drinking. It's just pineapple juice and soda water. That's funny. Okay, ladies, let's get this show on the road. What did I say? February 8th? Owning Your Fire, February 8th, 2017. So, I am in a sundress. Today it was 28 degrees, and it's the low is 20. So it's 28 up to 30 for the next 3 days. I was saying that we went for a bob in the ocean. I don't think I can call it a swim because the waves were really strong, so we kind of got in the water and let the waves bob us up and down. So we were more sort of like corks than swimmers. So we went for a bob in the ocean. It's 5 minutes from us. It's glorious. This is a glorious spot. And the park people are so friendly, and they're so appreciative of the fact, Wayne's doing resident volunteer work here, and they're so appreciative of the volunteers that it's actually embarrassing to be here because they give you a free campsite. To be, if you were in Florida on the ocean like this campsite is, you'd be paying $100 a night. And so here you basically you work 25 hours a week. And if you want to, they have these sort of golf cart trams they circle the park and pick up people coming from the beach with coolers and stuff and take them back to their cars in the parking lots. So if you want, you could just drive the golf cart tram and that would be your volunteer contribution. And so all the volunteers are in a private part of the park. Like it's a day park like Andrew Hayden. So there's no camping here. It's only the volunteers that are allowed to camp, and we're in a private park that's separate. The public can't come in here, and so all the volunteers are very friendly. We've had dinners together. We've had hot dog roasts and campfires, and everybody's having a great time. Enjoying each other and getting to know each other and stuff like that. So lovely spot. So I've been doing some work, that's always fun. And I actually made myself seriously sick. I haven't done that in years. So I've taken the stuff that's come through and broken it up in chunks. And, I sort of figured out there's a difference between how I process it and how I would teach it. So I'm going to take it in pieces and, see how many pieces we get done tonight and what we don't get done tonight. We'll do in March. Pardon me, I still have a cough. So we're going to start with, I want to talk a little bit about the trust concept. So you guys know that the way I define trust is a little bit different than the way the world defines trust. I define trust, I say trust is when you believe that you can predict someone's behavior. And so when you feel betrayed, it actually means you were mistaken in your prediction. The way, the generally accepted definition of trust is much more of a victim state. So, typically people think of trust as, do you trust someone to be honest or to, take you into account, to consider your well-being in your interactions with them? Do you trust them with your privacy or with your money or with your heart, with your well-being, that kind of thing. So it's really, when you use the sort of public attitude of trust, what you're actually doing is saying the experience I have depends on how this other person behaves. Whereas my definition of trust is really saying, take responsibility. It's up to you to recognize whether you're willing to see the truth of who this person is. If you see the truth of who they are, then their behavior's pretty predictable. And if you're not seeing the truth of who they are, that means that there's some coping mechanism, there's some program in you that's blocking your perception. And there's a reason for that. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're naive or stupid or willfully ignorant. It means that, as somewhere in the past, there were reasons for you to put a blind spot in place, to block your perception. And typically, that probably happened when you were a child and you were a dependent. So we're going to talk quite a bit about that as a concept. So I want you to think about, say, 2 years old, okay? If you were 2 years old and your parents decided to move, for instance, move houses, they're probably not going to discuss it with a 2-year-old. And I can think about this, my parents moved when I was young. I don't remember, but I mean, I know it happened. I'm sure they didn't discuss it with me. I know when I moved into the house on Abbey Hill, Matthew was 1. I certainly didn't discuss it with him. And I can look back now, knowing what I know about energy, and if I knew what I know now, at the time, I would have told him about it. I would have explained, this is what's happening. We're going to move houses. Everybody's going to be together. You're going to be safe. And here's why it's all okay. I got to tell you, at the time when he was 1, you kind of just picked him up and brought him with you. Like it didn't occur to me to explain to him what was going on. But if you think about a toddler, sort of 1 minute they're living in this house and this is their bedroom and this is sort of where the kitchen is and where mom is and where things are. And the next minute you've been picked up and carted somewhere and suddenly that other place is gone and now there's a new place and you have no idea what's going on. Moving is simply an example. There's lots of things that could be happening. The magical appearance of a sibling, changes in what's going on in life, redecorating, Even for some kids, just being sent to school, like, why is this happening? Why are they doing this to me? So if you go back and think, when you were a 2-year-old, nobody asked you. Things just kind of happened. They just kind of happened. And because you were a dependent, the people who were, the responsible adults, or the people who were supposedly taking care of you and keeping you safe, they were also your access to resources. So I've talked about this before, but just, trying to give a summary. And if you need a reminder, just, type it in the Q&A, please. When you're a 2-year-old, the people who are the adults are kind of like the handle on the fridge door for you. If you want to access resources, they are your access. If you want something to eat, if you want a drink, if you need something, you get it through them. So they become like the handle on the fridge door, which, you're too small to open, you need them to open it. And so because you're a dependent, you're not going to break that. Part of you being safe is protecting your access to that handle, your ability to activate that handle and get it to do things, if you will. So think, and I'm still going to stick with the moving metaphor because it's an easy one to comprehend, I believe. Here you have this 2-year-old who's suddenly been displaced, has no idea, why their house is gone, their room is gone, why suddenly, they have no idea. They've been put in a different place. They don't know if it's going to last. They don't know how long it's going to be. And if you think about it for a minute, that could be true of a vacation. It could be true of a trip to a cottage. Like there's so many reasons that the child could feel displaced and not know what was going on. Well, what if they express that they're upset? What if they cry? What if they complain? What if they act out? What the parent is going to want to do is get them to stop. Stop crying, stop complaining, whatever. Just stop being a problem. This is not malicious. This is, the kid's upset, you want them to stop. And particularly, if you have things to do. It's like, I have things to do. You need to, stop being a problem. So what they're going to do is, they're going to want this child to stop. The child is going to be aware of that. And they will allow themselves to be pacified. The child allows themselves to be pacified because they don't want to break the fridge door handle. They don't want to damage their access to resources by upsetting this person who they are dependent on. So that means that at a very early age, you get trained to not have your problem solved, but have it pacified. To all apparent purposes, the problem has been solved. If mom says, here's a cookie, you're okay now, you're good, and you learn to present that you're good, at some level, this then becomes the program. And you think the problem is solved when, the emotion hasn't been dealt with. The reality is your fears haven't been addressed. And that dependency becomes associated with pacifying emotions instead of solving problems, and pretending you're safe when you're not. This is pretty fundamental stuff. So we're going to do some in utero work because it goes back that far. If you pause and consider, if you're a fetus, the kinds of things that could happen. Mom could have a threat reaction. You don't know what's going on. Okay? She could have a couple of drinks. You don't know what's going on. So there are things in your environment that you wouldn't understand that you are, quote, subject to. And at that point, do you even have a way to express your emotions? So this is kind of intricate, deep, and fundamental. When I was working my way through this, because I get to work through it and then figure out how to present it to you guys in pieces, what I found I had to do was I had to change how the sockets worked. Now, let me give you some context for that. Previously, you've heard me talk about the molecules of emotion. So when we feel an emotion, we have chemistry, in our bodies, and there are sockets on the cells that are receptors. And so the molecules of the emotion kind of go into the sockets. One of the challenges we have is that if you feel something for a period of time, say you're, sad for a few months, then you will grow more receptors for sad. And since you're not using the happy ones, you'll overgrow the happy ones with the sad ones. This is part of our adaptability. And it means that if we want to have more of some emotion in our life, you actually have to train your body so it will grow more of those emotion receptors. So this is a very real biology thing. It goes back to the Candace Pert stuff in the Molecules of Emotion book. Candace Pert is that scientist who discovered endorphins and all sorts of things about how emotions work in the body. So what I discovered when I was looking at this is I had to go in and change how the receptors were working. There's a comment here. Mackie says, Mom and Dad left me with my aunts when I was 1 year old, and they went to England on a posting, and they returned home 10 to 11 months later when you were 2 with a brother on the way. Okay then, yeah, see, so you kind of get the point. All right. Michelle, you missed some of this stuff, so I'm going to I'm going to do a really brief recap. So when you're very small, you are a dependent child. You're dependent on the adult for your access to resources, so you don't want to piss them off. If they do something that upsets you, like say your family moves house, they probably aren't going to discuss it with you because you're 2. So suddenly you find yourself, in a place you don't understand why you're there. Nobody's explained. You don't know if you're going home. You don't know why they're there or how long this is going to last. Perhaps you get upset. If you get upset, the adults, of course, they just want you to stop being upset. And so the program then becomes you learn to be pacified. You learn to have your emotions pacified instead of resolved. You learn to have your fears pacified instead of addressed. And so this is the programming we're looking at. And we're going to do some in utero work and some other stuff. So what I was saying is what I found I had to do was I actually had to go in and work with how those receptors on the cells worked. Okay? Pat says, this is explaining why I hate being pacified. Yes. It's also very weird when we get into something like this because we've done all kinds of work. So there's all these sort of, when I find something like this is a really fundamental piece, and yet we've done so much work, fundamentally, that's the only reason we can get to that. The only reason we can get to something that is this deep and this basic, it's hooked up to the biology. The only reason we can get to it is because of all the work you've done. So give yourself a pat on the back because this is deep shit. So in the same way, if you're a fetus, then things can be going on with mom, who is literally your environment when you're a fetus. You don't have control of that. Nobody's asking you. Nobody's responding to your emotions. And I mean, if you think about it, what happens when there's a fetus, I mean, sometimes the baby will kick or be really active, and what you either go for a walk because that rocks them to sleep, or you sit in a rocking chair and rock because that rocks them to sleep, or you just kind of rub your belly because you're saying calm down. That's enough. Because frankly, when you're pregnant, it's not fun to be kicked in the kidneys. It means you have to run to the bathroom every 5 minutes. So it's not malicious. People are, people, parents, whatever, they're just living their lives. They're just doing what they're doing. It's not like they're sitting there looking for ways to torture you. They're oblivious to the fact that you're a person. And I can look back at, when my kids were 2, like I was not, like it never would have occurred to me to discuss with Matthew that we were going to move houses. He was 1. It just didn't enter my mind. Now I would. Now I'd do that. So we have all of these experiences where, we had threat reactions, we had fears, the people around us are kind of just doing the best they can. And I want you to just notice how this plays out, because here's what would happen. You have adults who are, they got stuff to do. They got, if you just move, they're trying to get the house set up, or, if they're making dinner and you're upset about something, they're just trying to deal with their life, and their response to the child is to quiet them down. Like if you're upset, then they need to quiet you down. It's not real deep. Like their thoughts are not deep. Their thoughts are just get through the day. They got stuff to do. They got stuff to do. They don't want to deal with a bunch of emotion. They don't deal with their own emotions. So now I want you to pause and consider what that looks like in your life. How often do you have stuff going on emotionally and you don't want to spend a bunch of time on it? Like you just don't want to kind of sit with your emotions because you got stuff to do. And stuff you'd rather be doing. Probably lots of stuff you'd rather be doing than grieving or dealing with fears or whatever. So this response is not just a program. I think it's become a preference. Pardon me for coughing. So pause and think. When you have a lot of emotion going on, like nobody wants to deal with their negative emotion. I mean, as a group, we're probably better at it than the average person on the street because we've learned not to ignore it. We've learned that the price of ignoring it is too high. But I want you to pause and think, you know, if you are faced with some kind of emotional stress, do you have that, oh, you know, I'd rather be doing something else than doing that? Lots to think about, right? So I want to start in utero, and then we'll bring it forward through time. I know what the in utero part looks like. I'm not quite sure how the moving forward part looks like, but we'll figure it out as we go because it'll come out of my mouth and then I'll hear it. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let your breath be even on the way in and on the way out. Pardon me. Just think about letting your breath be slow and low. So we're going to do a sort of a campfire with this. So allow yourself to picture the woods. It needs to be woods, not beach this time. Picture the woods and the path through the woods. And this is a place that only you can go. The path is wide and open. The sun is shining, just enough clouds and breeze so that you're comfortable. Allow yourself to walk into the woods along the path. As you walk into the woods, allow yourself to leave your day behind and think about allowing yourself to go deeper and deeper, to go deeper and deeper. As you walk along the path, there's a stream on one side of you. And as you go deeper and deeper into the woods on the other side, it opens into a field. And in the middle of the field, there's a campfire. And beside the campfire, there's a chair. You may find that something's occupying your chair. If that's the case, you can dissolve that chair and make another one appear for you. Think about whether you feel ready to occupy that chair. You can either go to the chair if you're ready and claim your chair. And let's put a ball of bright white light around the whole clearing and you in the chair, the fire. Get it spinning. Let's put lots of good stuff in there. Courage and light and love, acceptance and approval. Lots of comfort and support. And I want you to call out the fetus you in utero. So that means that the figure that's going to come is going to be in an amniotic sac in the womb with an umbilical cord floating, and let this light spin through and around. Just let all of that comfort and love and light spin through this baby. So when you're a fetus, there's a whole bunch of things going on. One is you have this umbilical cord that is your source of resources. It gives you oxygen, nutrients. And then you have stuff that kind of passes through the uterine wall. So it would come through the uterine wall and then through this amniotic sac. So things like hormones, if your mother has a threat reaction, the hormones would come through the uterine wall. They don't come through the umbilical cord. You don't share a blood supply with your mother. Yours is distinct. And so for this child, there's a lot of information coming through this amniotic fluid. There's a lot of information coming through the umbilical cord. Then there's things like sound and movement. And then there's also awareness. This child has lots of knowing. Lots and lots of knowing. Now what's interesting about this is there's a lot more knowing available to the child than the child tends to access. So if you think of the 2-year-old kind of being surprised by, like suddenly they've transported you to a new house and nobody told you. Well, even if they didn't talk to you about it, you have the capacity to sense what is going on. Now, what's interesting is a 2-year-old's brain is very not developed. A lot like the prefrontal cortex stuff is not developed. So it would be knowing as opposed to comprehension. You would have very limited comprehension with a 2-year-old brain, but you'd have lots of knowing. Now this is where it gets fun because you've got lots of knowing, you're used to having knowing, but you're also used to having knowing in the context of your adult perception and your adult context. So for instance, if you were interacting with someone and you sensed somehow, you just knew that they were planning to move, that would mean a whole bunch of things to you. They're going to move. Maybe they're moving houses, maybe they're moving countries, whatever, maybe they're moving jobs. The thing is, all of that has implications to you. It wouldn't have those implications to a 2-year-old. It would not have those implications to a 2-year-old. So the concept of moving may not even exist for this child. Okay? So what the child has is their perception of what the people around them are experiencing. One of the things Patricia Wall will say is that young children, when they're having experiences, what they'll do is they will literally take their consciousness and put it into the people around them so that they can experience something from different perspectives. And this is one of the ways they learn. So if there's an experience of, I don't know, Christmas or moving or, people coming to visit, they will, pop in and out of other people's bodies and heads to learn what is it like from here? What is it like from dad's view? What is it like from mom's view? This has pros and cons because if you have a snapshot experience from someone else's perspective, it comes with all of their crap. Okay, comes with their fears, comes with their whatever. So for instance, if you found yourself moved to a new house and you popped into mom's head, she might be looking around thinking of how much work it's all going to be and how much cleaning she's got to do and dreading it. So then you have a perception of dread that isn't necessarily big picture. It's small picture. It's her immediate problems versus, the reasons they decided to move. And I mean, maybe they had negative reasons for moving. Who knows? Maybe they had financial problems. What I'm saying is, because you don't have adult context, you have a limited ability to comprehend. So now if you go back to the fetus, that's going to be even bigger. The lack of context, the lack of comprehension is going to be even bigger. So in brain development, in human development, you don't develop the concept of big picture till you actually reach puberty. And even then it's only starting, so it's from puberty onward you start to develop it. So think about what you can give this child to give them the capacity to feel safe. What would that even look like for that child? If this was a Hallmark movie, then for the child it would be, well, mom's here, dad's here, all's right with the world. It doesn't matter where we live. It doesn't matter what's going on. It must be okay. I don't know anybody who lives that. I don't know anybody who lives that. Even people who have wonderful parents. The child is not always rational in their fear. Fear is not rational. So they may not feel that that's enough, especially if they don't feel they comprehend what's going on. So what the child needs is something that is more of a feeling than a fact. And the feeling is trusting yourself to deal with what life throws at you. So step one is to pause and consider if you can actually feel that for yourself now as an adult today. Do you feel that you have a capacity to deal with life? And that doesn't mean you wouldn't feel fear or not know what to do in the moment. The thing is, if you had to deal, could you get yourself to put one foot in front of the other and deal with it? If what, there's so many horror stories out there. If the poles shift and suddenly there's no electricity and now we all have to go snare rabbits to survive, you're gonna have to learn to snare rabbits. Figure it out. You can't Google it because if there's no electricity, that doesn't work. The bottom line is, are you willing to be someone who solves problems instead of pacifying problems? This is a choice. And it's a big choice because it's really changing how you interact with the world and with life. It's changing from, having a whole set of victim programs to having power programs instead, having that choice program instead. So in that campfire, sitting in your chair, is the part of you that has the ability to choose. Floating in front of you is that baby who doesn't even really understand what choice means yet. And this is not about discussion. This is not even about learning. This is about knowing. Because this child only understands feeling and knowing. So think about whether you're willing to feel that whatever life throws at you, you're going to deal with it. And you may not know the answers. Well, you'll have to figure it out, won't you? So this is about choosing, say, you know what? I'll figure it out. Sure, I may not know the answers. I have no idea how to snare a rabbit. No clue. but I will figure something out. One step at a time, one foot in front of the other. Way outside my comfort zone, because I don't want to live that kind of life. The thing is, I'll figure it out. So now pause and let that light spin through you and around you and through that child. And just let the comfort soak into you, because this is challenging. That's it. Let the light give you comfort and approval and love. And it's funny, we have all of these abilities. Like I know one of the things you can do is you can go seek in other lives that you've had to find skills that you might need. We don't do a lot of that because, frankly, I don't care how to snare rabbits. It's not a priority for me. But boy, if you had to do it, you'd sharpen up that skill real quick. And that's the key. That on a day-to-day basis, you deal with life as it is. And if things happen, then you deal with them as they come up. And you have the ability to deal with stuff. The thing is, we're used to dealing with stuff that's inside our own milieu. And so if somebody took me and dropped me in a jungle in Africa, I'd be a little out of my depth. And if they dropped me in a car in the middle of Rome, I'd be out of my depth. And if they dropped me, I don't know, on Mars, I'd be out of my depth. It's, you deal with it. You're going to deal with it. And it's deciding that. It's deciding, all right, I'll deal with it. And then taking the feeling of trusting yourself to deal. And I mean, if they drop me on Mars and, basically I suffocate, oh well. Who knows? I don't know. If I got dropped on Mars, would it be that I would suddenly have the ability to evolve myself to breathe the Mars atmosphere, or would I die? I don't know. The thing is, I'm going to deal with the thing that's in front of me. The outcome is not the point. The point here is your decision to be a person who deals. I'll figure it out. I'll use my resources. I'll ask for help. I'll, whatever. I'll deal with it. And as you decide, I will be a person who deals with it, allow yourself to feel that knowing of yourself, the truth of that choice, and then notice all of the fear that comes with it, because that's a totally reasonable thing. It's okay to be afraid. Fear is information. Fear is information from your subconscious that means there's a threat present. Well, if there's something to deal with, yeah, there's going to be a threat present. It's okay. And what that means is that knowing that you're a person who deals means you also deal with it when you're afraid. You know that you're afraid because there's threats, and you deal with it. You don't know what the outcome's going to be? Well, you're going to deal with that too. There you go. See, it's starting to come together into that knowing. All right. It might not be fun either, right? That's okay. You're going to deal with it. You're going to deal with it. Now take that feeling. Put it in a ball of light. The knowing. The certainty of your choice. I will deal with it. I will use my resources. I will figure it out. I'll deal. It is a trust in yourself. And trust that you can predict the behavior of you. I'm going to deal with it instead of hiding. I'm going to deal with it instead of escaping. I'm going to deal. And that means you're willing to know all sorts of things that you haven't been willing to know because you've been trained to pacify, to run away, to hide, all of those things. That's it. Put all of that knowing, and now put the child in the ball of light and you in the chair in the ball of light with all of that knowing, and spin it through you and around you. And there's going to be lots of old emotion that comes up from this. Let the emotion flow and go. Yes, you can deal with it without naming it. You can't name it. You don't know what it is. That's the whole point. It's saying whatever it is, I'll deal with it. It doesn't mean you won't have a little freak. It doesn't mean you won't have moments of panic. That's okay. Then you get past that and then you deal with it. That's it. And use the fire to process whatever emotion is there for you and for that child. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, we're tuning this child with this knowing, goes into her heart, goes through all of her tissue, goes into the patterns for tissue, because not all of her tissue is formed yet. Oh, and that's where it goes into the forming of the sockets. That's interesting, because you're changing the patterns for the child so that how she processes emotion is different, how she processes threat is different, and how she knows is different. All of this is bringing her into power. Very interesting. Okay, so we've got the light with the knowing and the choice. I will deal. Spinning through the child, spinning through you in the chair. All right, so now what you're going to do is, as that light is spinning through the child and you in the chair, allow it also to spin out all the versions of you between the fetus and you in the chair. So all the versions of the fetus, all the child, all the teenagers, all the young adults, all the yous of yesterday and last week, all the way back to conception. And keep that light spinning all of this through. And as you are spinning this light through, allow the fire to come and flame up as much as it needs to process the emotion. Because there's a lot of emotion with this, ladies. And if you let the fire do it for you, then that'll be a lot less you have to carry out with you. So the fire will burn off the obsolete emotion without burning. It'll neutralize all that old emotion. So neutralizing emotions of fear, of feeling sandbagged, when the people around you do stuff that you felt like you didn't have control of. The sandbag feeling of, something happened that you didn't see coming. You don't know quite what to do about it. And this is building your capacity to literally be sandbagged and be able to function and process and have confidence in yourself as someone who can deal. So this is going to be a while. So it's going to be a few moments or minutes or months. For now, we'll give it a few minutes because there's a lot of tuning going on for all of these versions of you, and there's a lot of emotion being neutralized by the fire. through all of these versions of you. There's tons of it. Because probably in your life you've had a few times where you didn't see something coming. And the fact that you didn't see it coming is a symptom of this. It becomes a chicken and egg thing because it's part of the program to not see it coming. Do you see what I mean? So as this shifts, you'll see things coming much more. As you go forward from this after tonight, this will process for months. I can tell it's going to process for months. If you notice yourself saying, like, I didn't see that coming, it's a piece that, was a piece that was buried under something. So just, kind of go back and clean it up again, because you'll always go more layers. Every time you do it, you get more layers. Wow, this is a big one. So as the body patterns are being changed, they're being changed for the fetus, they're being changed for all the versions of you, they're being changed for you in the chair, which is kind of the present you, if you will. They're also being changed going forward. So this becomes your new natural state. If something knocks you over, basically you fall back to here instead of reverting. And so that means your cells are changing, and how you produce cells going forward is going to change. So lots of detox, lots of support for your body, because as much as we're doing this with energy work, there is a physical process that your body is going to go through. So lots of detox, and just be aware. It's like it's kind of like you've been running some marathons and you're preparing for more marathons. Give yourself some rest. Pay attention to what your body needs in terms of nutrients. If you're one of those people that is really good at having the vitamins and not taking them, then you might want to take a shot at taking them, because you need stuff for your cells and things. You may find things like, what you want to eat changes because you're making your cells differently now. How you move may want to change, and there will be a transition period of a few months, and then the dust will settle and you'll figure out what the new thing is. Of course, by then we'll probably have done something else. So heaven forbid that we get bored. Okay, so you know how this works. Notice if there's something bubbling up or if there's some physical sensation, and that means that there's something that is you're tripping over. So put it in the Q&A and I'll tell you what's going on. Doesn't mean there has to be. It's just if there's something that you're noticing. Because there's still a lot of processing going on. Marie says her left hip is seizing. So if you think about the hip, so your base chakra is I am safe. Your sacral is I am me. And solar plexus is I discover me. So together they are I am safe being me in the world. Left is potential. So basically you're saying I don't feel safe moving forward in my life with this new state. So pay attention to in the light, and everybody do it, because Maurice is doing the favor of bringing it up. It's put comfort, put protection in the light that's spinning through you. So because what that's going to do is it's going to tune the fetus, the you, and all the versions in between and going forward to be willing to protect yourself. Because here's what just happened. You said, okay, so I'm willing to deal. That did not automatically mean to you that you should take care of you. What the child was trained to do is take care of the people you were dependent on, and that was a way of protecting you, but you defaulted to protecting them instead of you. So part of this update, the I'm willing to deal, is to be willing to protect you. So put that choice and that energy in all of the light spinning through, and recognize that that's going to cause more emotion to release, because there's probably been a few incidents in your life where you protected others instead of yourself. And if you're reprogramming, then those things have to flow and go. Okay. Judy's saying she's got twinges in her right arm, where she's had rotator cuff issues. So think about how your rotator cuff allows your arm to, to reach, like if you wanted to hug someone or if you wanted to grab something, it allows you to reach over your head. So it allows you to go for more. It allows you to go beyond. Okay. Your body is really literal. When your body does stuff like this, so literal. Okay. So basically what's happening is, and this is fulfillment. So what you're saying is, I'm afraid to fulfill this potential. I'm afraid to go for more. It's okay to be afraid. That's information. And it's important to notice what you're afraid of so that you can deal with it. And that's the whole point. So what you want to do is acknowledge, okay, so yes, there's fear, and I'm willing to deal with the fear, and I'm willing to address it instead of pacifying it. Not just ignore it, not just say this is just an annoyance. I want to know what the fear is and I want to deal with it. So take that awareness. I choose to know, and I choose to actually deal with it. With that choice and that awareness in that light that's spinning through you and the fetus and all the versions of you, and tuning you for the future. Cool. Okay. Heartburn. So heartburn, huh, it's because you don't like the idea of being in command. There's a shocker. You really have struggles with command. So the thing about command is, you know, you choose. And we really prefer to conform. And as much as we understand, we understand that, it is a choice. Even no choice is a choice. We like the idea that we're taking care of everybody. And we really dislike the idea that that's a lie, that that's a codependent construct. People will create the experience they want regardless of what you do. And so this is about being willing to respect their choices. The heartburn is your fear of what their choices will be. And so the next step is, yes, you fear what their choices will be. Of course you do. Now, are you willing to be a person who deals? Do you want to be a victim of their choices, or do you want to deal? So recognize that this piece of it, this piece of, I'm a person who deals, includes dealing with other people's choices. Allow yourself to make that decision. I will know it. I will deal with it. And I will deal with my emotions, not just pacify them, not consider them just an inconvenience. I may have to be strategic. The thing is, I will know and I will deal. I will take care of me and I will protect me. Put all of that in the light. It's funny because it's all the same stuff. It's everything you guys are noticing is these little elements of it that you need to make the decision more deliberately about that specific aspect. And that's the cool stuff, right? Because this is the part that bubbles up where you have a resistance, or you have, the program's a little bit harder to shake loose. And by bringing it to your conscious awareness, it allows you to make that decision more deliberate. Estrella says, I feel stretched tall and look white. No real feelings. Not sure what look white means. Stretched tall. No real feeling. Oh, that's interesting, Estrella. Okay, so basically what you've got as part of this program is you've got part of the program for you is that other people will tell you what you're supposed to be feeling. So part of that being pacified is they will tell you how to behave. They will tell you what you're supposed to act like or feel like. And so part of this, and this is for everybody, because that's the whole reason this stuff bubbles up, is so that we can get all the strands that, try to get away from us. Is, if mom says, you're fine, here's a cookie, stop crying, she's telling you you're fine now. And so, in order to conform to the requirements, you have to, quote, be fine. So part of the program is you expect someone to tell you what to feel. And if that means feel nothing, then that's part of the deal. And so part of this is to recognize you will feel what you feel. You will know their expectations, their requirements, and you can choose how to interact with that. You're capable of being strategic. The key here is to be willing to know the difference between what you actually feel and what they want from you, so you can decide how to interact with it. So take all of that knowing and choice, put all of that in the light. Michelle says, am I also afraid of me making choices for me and the impact of my choices on others? Absolutely. So it's allowing yourself to choose. The thing is, people influence your choices, especially the people who are dear to you. They will have an effect on your choices. It's up to you to recognize that, to recognize where you are giving status, where you are allowing people to influence you, and to know the influence they're having. You may make different decisions about a vacation or what you have for supper based on, what you care and the people that are around you. Totally reasonable. The key is to know it and to know that you're dealing with that. To know what you're dealing with. Margot says, what is I'll give you something to cry about? Yes. Yes. Actually, yeah. Lots of people had that one said. So it's like, if you're upset about something and somebody says, I'll give you something to cry about, what they're actually saying to you is their perception, their judgment is the reason you're crying is invalid. And so they're using a threat to get you to stop. Instead of, here's a cookie, it's like either you stop or I hit you, that kind of thing. So it's still a pacifier. Okay, it's an aggressive pacifier. It's still a pacifier. And if you think about it, in some ways this is more honest, because when they say, you're fine, here's a cookie, they're saying, shut up and stop crying. It just looks nicer. If they say, shut up and stop crying or I'll belt you, there's less pretense in that. As harsh as it sounds, there's less pretense in it. Both of them, whether it's, you're fine, stop crying, or shut up and stop crying, either one of them is denying you the expression of your emotion, and it's calling your reaction invalid, which is Like, that doesn't even make sense. If you have a reaction, it's your reaction. It can't be invalid. The fact that they don't like it or it's inconvenient, that doesn't make it invalid. What you're used to is being told. Whether you're told, here's a cookie, or you're told, shut up or I'll belt you, either way you're being told, stop expressing and, buckle that emotion down because the people around you are not happy about it. So now what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I choose to know what I'm feeling. I choose to be strategic about how and when I express it. I can do that based on what's good for me. I choose to know what's going on with them. So literally speaking, if you feel like crying and you know that the people around you will be upset if you cry, you may decide to cry anyway, or you may decide to save it for later. That's based on what's good for you. And part of what's good for you is you have to deal with these people. So this is all now giving the choice back to you, giving the clarity of knowing back to you. So it's choosing the knowing, choosing to choosing the ability to be strategic and to do what's good for you, to protect you. Doing what's good for you is part of protecting you. Strategic is part of protecting you. Yes, Pat, you're doing good with it. Doing very well. Okay. Yelena, I see your comment. We're just still processing this one. Lots and lots. All of these things in the light, all these different layers, all of the emotion being released. Let the fire neutralize the emotion. Let it flow and go from all these, from the babies, the child cells, from the younger you, all the versions of you, from the you now. Okay, Ghislaine said tension in the throat and mouth. So much of this is about suppressing expression. So if you think that child who wants to cry or wants to speak out, automatically throat and mouth is the shutdown. So that's the part you're feeling. So it's allowing that energy to open with the wisdom of being strategic and choosing what is right for you. It's always about allowing yourself the choice so that you can express. You are the one who decides if you express in this moment or express in another way. The key is that you can express, so it's your choice. It's a reasonable strategy to say, I'm afraid what will happen if I say something, or I'm afraid what will happen if I'll cry, or I'm afraid how people will react. I don't want to cry here. All of those things are reasonable strategies. Privacy exists for a reason. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you want everybody to know what you're feeling, or that you want to be in the vulnerable position of expressing what you're feeling in that particular moment. The key is for you to know it and be able to choose and to be able to own that this expression needs to happen somehow, somewhere, so that you can take care of you. So much of this kind of programming is about owning the fact that you're not a dependent anymore. So let all of that be in the light, spinning through you and all of these versions of you. Holly says, all I feel is wah, 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 not working. It is working. It's interesting because for Holly, right now specifically, what I see is it going through your spine and it looks like white wires going through all of these parts of your spine. So I think you're doing this at the central nervous system level. So that may be because it's so primal, and it's, this is not like, we're used to working in the limbic system with emotion or in cognitive awareness. This is before that. So this is brainstem stuff. It's amygdala stuff. It's very, very deep. So it may be that where you're used to feeling it is not where this is happening. So if you just let yourself look at it happening instead of looking for a specific feeling, then I think you'll, yeah, like that. All the white wires just got colorful. That's cute. Yeah. It is going through your whole chakra system. And this is really, really fundamental building block stuff. Like, this is changing how your cells form and how they function. While it's processing, yeah, no, Margot, you've got the colored lines. It's all there. I watch everybody. If it wasn't working, I'd know something was wrong, and I would go poking at it. So while this is processing, because there's still emotion being released from all these versions, and there's still wiring changing, and there's still colored lines and sockets evolving, and the way cells forms evolving. Just for fun, if you're preoccupied with what's going on, stay with it. If you want something to occupy your mind because you like to watch what's going on, go look at how the sockets are changing. It's really fascinating, because I think the sockets have always been a bit of a keyhole, in the sense that on these cells, the kind of thing that would fit into a specific socket is very, very programmed. Like, if it's the molecules of SAD, it will only go into a SAD socket. If it's a specific hormone, it'll only go into that kind of socket. And so these sockets are changing, and they're much more an expression of choice as opposed to a reaction. And I find this fascinating because, like, by definition, sockets are a receiver. So it's almost like what you're doing is saying, I don't form a receiver based on what's available. I form a receiver based on what I choose to receive. So that's going to be a really interesting change. And I've been playing with it, and I've noticed, I played with it with a couple of people, and it's affecting how viruses act in the body and how other things like that act in the body. Okay, so Tony says, if we believe we are in someone's territory and belonging, and they tell us not to express because we put them, oops, somehow I lost that. Oh, here it is, okay. And they tell us not to express because we put them in reaction. So what you're saying is what we have is our own territory and belonging. Yeah, that would be the whole owning your fire thing, right? That would be kind of fundamental. That would be the bottom line. Everything we do is about being balanced in our own sense of self, in our own identity, and owning your territory and owning your own belonging is part of all that. It's the expression of that. That would be the whole point of owning your fire group. Aha. It's funny, I don't always link it back to that. So thank you for linking it back to that. Judy says, can we evolve the sockets to restore the overridden stuff? More happy would be good. We're going to do something a little bit different than that. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're still processing this. There's so much emotion that's been stored. And it's funny because I really thought we were going to have to do something much more specific to tackle releasing the emotion, but it seems to be just it's like it's coming. It's almost like snow falling or old skin sloughing off. This is of all these versions. It's very interesting, and the fire takes care of it. It's like the tuning. The tuning makes the emotion. Like you carry all this obsolete emotion. It's actually, it's one of the reasons we age. It's one of the reasons we have physical challenges. And so the more of this you get rid of, the better for your body, the better for your being. And so I thought we'd have to do some very specific work to tackle the fact that there's so much emotion held because of this. But what's happening, what I'm seeing happening is the more we tune all these versions to this capacity for choice and owning, knowing and owning, like basically giving up being sandbagged. It's like the emotion just releases on its own because it's not congruent anymore. So having the emotion release is very important. And like I said, this is going to go on for months. And you guys are used to that. Lots of detox, lots of supporting the body. Margot, you just had a whole bunch of stuff that looked like coat hangers fall out. Pat, you're dropping stuff. It looks like wet cotton balls. And it just keeps like falling out. It's funny, everybody's got stuff falling out. It's all these different images. Okay, so we're going to keep that going. Holly Margot says some of us have pain in your ears. Yes, Pat, it's good. The whole experience being soft is good. So the pain in your ears, that's part of the expression thing. So I said part of this is because you block the knowing, right? And what you're doing is you're opening the knowing. You're being willing to know what's going on with these people, being willing to give yourself more context for what's going on around you. If you think about being a 2-year-old where your family is in the process of moving, you would have heard stuff. You would have heard them talking about it. And so there's a deliberate, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing. Like there's a blocking in the knowing that's being opened by all this. So the key is to decide it's okay to let this happen with love so you don't need pain. If you feel pain, that's a resistance. And so there's a part of you saying, well, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know all this information. And when you were 2, there were really good reasons to not know because it was too overwhelming to know how afraid the people around you were. If you were 2 years old and you're dependent on these people around you and you suddenly become aware of how afraid they are, how the hell could you possibly feel safe? So you didn't know. You blocked off your awareness. And so the thing is, now you're not a dependent. You're not asking the 2-year-old you or the fetus you to know the information that you know. What you're giving them is an innate knowing that they can deal. So if somebody randomly moves them to another house, they can know that they can deal with that. It'll be okay. They may not know how they're going to deal with it. They may not know what's going on. It's the awareness that you will figure it out and you will manage. You will manifest what you need to manifest. Some of that might be information. Sometimes you can, if you heard them say, well, now we're settled in the new house and, we expect to stay here for the next 10 years, that's useful information. So the problem is if you've got all of the information shut off because you don't want to know about their fear, you don't hear the useful information either. So you're actually able to decide to know what's useful to you. The thing is, it's useful to know they're afraid. You just don't want to know that. Here's the deal. Them being afraid does not mean they fail at providing you with resources. They can be afraid their entire life and still put food on the table. And so it's allowing yourself to know fear is information from your subconscious. It doesn't break your world. Margot said, is this why I can't remember what is said, but I do when I see written words? Yes, that would make total sense. Funny how things like you go, oh, click, ding. Yep. So, if you think just the idea of knowing how afraid everybody is could seem overwhelming. It could seem overwhelming. The reality is you already know that. You already know that because they voted for Trump, for pity's sake. Like you can tell just by people's behavior, like you can feel it, for pity's like that's why columning is so important. Michelle Smith says, would it be good to do the command chakra section of the book? Actually, after a shift like this, it'd be good to kind of do the whole book because the book does, what it does is it kind of like realigns everything and resets it all. So because you've made such a big shift, it would be good to do a realign and reset of everything. So at the very least, yes, command chakra section would be great. The whole thing would be even better. I debated about doing the helix tonight as a round off, but I think we need the time. We need the time to flush the emotion, and it supports you more if I help you guys flush the emotion. And then if you have the helix stuff, I mean, the tool sets are on the shop now, so if you don't have them, you can get them. It would be good to do this as a tune-up, or do the complete singing bowls, the 9 singing bowls thing, to just kind of, get everything integrated. I have got integrating and detox in the balls with you guys. You can put it in deliberately if you want. It's just, like I said, it's an ongoing process for months. So the more you do that kind of thing, the more it helps you with the processing. And I've checked probably roughly about every 10 minutes. I check and see, is it better to leave off processing the emotion and go do something for integration? And it helps you more if I work with you to process the emotion for everybody. And it's funny because processing the emotion with everybody doing it helps you do more of it. And I do keep checking. Judy's praising my meditations for the chakra book. Thank you, Judy. I'm pretty proud of them. Michelle Smith says, I have so much fear about upsetting those I love and being unliked because of it, or unloved because of it. So here's the thing, and this is a reasonable fear, and I mean, bottom line, everybody wants to be liked and everybody wants to be loved. You can't make people like you, and you can't make people love you. If you try to be someone else to keep them comfortable, to keep them liking you, and to keep them loving you, then it's not you that they're liking and loving. And I promise you that you know that. So what we're taught by all our cultural conditioning is to conform and be the person they want us to be. We're taught to be someone they want us to be so that they will like us and love us. And fundamentally, that's a lie. You know, if you say, "Oh, I love bluegrass music," you know, if anybody likes bluegrass music, you know, this is just a metaphor. I love bluegrass music, and really in the back of your mind going, "Oh my God, I hate that stuff. It's all so repetitive." If they like you because you're a fan of bluegrass, they don't like you. So the fear that goes with that fear that, you know, if I upset them, they won't like me. If I upset them, they won't love me. Really, fundamentally, what you're saying is, if I am who I am, they won't like me or love me. And that means you've been taught that who you are is unacceptable. You have been taught that who you are is unacceptable, that you need to be whatever they want you to be in order to be liked or loved. And that's just not true. It's not true because who you are is love. Michelle says, I've been lying my whole life, and now I find that I'm saying no right, left, and center and choosing what's best for me. Yes, perfect. The allowing you unlock is the one that goes with the chakra meditations. It's up there for free. If you get the whole meditation set, it's included, and but you can also get it for free. So you can pass that on to your friends to, you know, if you want to share something with them. It's a pretty cool unlock, and it's about that specific unlock. It's different than your usual unlock because the only people you're calling out are versions of you. It's very interesting. It wasn't what I expected to do for this unlock. You think I'd know by now. You know, I've been a channel for like 20 years. You think I'd know that it's not going to be what I expect. At some point, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I was really surprised by it. And I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool unlock. So check it out. It is all about kind of getting out of your own way. It's releasing the blocks that are you interfering with you. Pat says, I've been doing the chakra meditations daily until today. You had an awesome experience in campfire, and they've been grounding you throughout. Yes. Yeah, it's good stuff. This is fundamental work. I like fundamental work because the whole chakra thing is it'll shift you regardless of what, you know, people often say, well, I don't know what's going on with me. You don't have to. You just shift your frequency, it'll sort itself out. You'll be fine. Okay, so focus on, just go back to paying attention to that ball of light. Comfort, acceptance, approval, love, safe. Choosing, I know, I deal. Choosing confidence in yourself that you will deal with it. Even if you fall over, even if you panic, even whatever, you will in fact deal with it. If you fall over, at some point you'll get up. If you panic, at some point you'll come out of it. Trusting yourself to deal, trusting yourself to know. And you can say things like, well, it's overwhelming to know how afraid people are. The thing is, you already know that. You already know. So the idea that you'll be overwhelmed by it is just not true. I think it's what you've been taught to believe, because you've been taught to believe that you should conform, that you shouldn't have an identity. You've been taught to believe you can't deal with the world. That's just not true. And I find it amazing the lengths that we will go to. You know, we'll do illness, we'll do depression, we'll do all kinds of things to limit ourselves so that we follow those rules of not being strong enough or being overwhelmed or whatever it is that we've been told that we have to be. It's amazing what we will do to ourselves to make it look true. And if you pause and consider, that's exactly the same as stopping crying when they either hand you a cookie or tell you to shut up. Because you do. You stop crying. It's the same thing. You are doing whatever it takes to yourself to give them what they want. And so much of your life is that you're still doing it. So every time we do something like this, you claim your ability to choose. It doesn't mean that you're going to throw out your life and make everything look different. It means that you will feel differently inside it, and you will feel more right inside you. Because you're still going to love the people you love. Tony here. Are we also then taught to be judgmental too? Absolutely, because here's the deal. The same programs that teach you to be who they want you to be teach you that this is how you love. You love someone by telling them who you want them to be. So you can allow the light to release that programming too. Good one, huh? You can allow the light to release the other side of it. So as a child, when they say either, here's a cookie, shut up, or they say, shut up or I'll smack you, what they're saying to you is, be who I want you to be. And so you learn that these are the people who are supposed to care for you and love you. And what they're saying to you is, I love you, be who I want you to be. So you learn to express love as a demand that people be who you want them to be. Because we're taught to expect people to conform as well. So allow the program to release the other side of it too. Good one. And then all of the emotion that goes with that. It looks like different colors and different formats. Isn't that fascinating? So think about, keeping that light tuned, lots of light, lots of love, lots of courage, lots of support for you in that light. And think about paying attention to the light going through that baby, like right from the moment of conception. Oops. Think about the light going through, paying attention to that fetus right from the moment of conception. Think about letting the light release all of those emotions that were suppressed, all of the emotions that were pacified instead of resolved. And because they're old, you don't have to go digging with them. You can just let that flow and go. And the programs that go with it. So think about starting kind of at the beginning, at that moment of conception, and really paying attention. It's almost like combing forward, saying, okay, let's clean it up sort of from the beginning, working your way sort of up through time, just because that's what we're used to thinking, working through the baby selves, through the toddler selves. So the babies and the toddlers, because they have such limited context, they don't know what a mortgage is. They don't know what a moving truck is. They've had limited experience. They've never done this before, right? Not consciously. I mean, obviously you've done it in other lives, but they're not aware of having done it before. So for them, it's very much about the knowing that you can deal with it, knowing, it'll all be good. I'll take care of it. I'll handle it. And then kind of sweep forward. And then as you're sweeping forward, I'm going to talk about something else. So, and we're keeping doing this, keeping the ball flowing. And if you can't listen and keep the ball flowing, I'll keep it going anyway. So for many, many, many years, if I look at possibilities from the command chakra, what I see is all these different timelines. And the ones that are more likely are brighter, and the ones that are less likely are less bright. So if somebody says to me, I want that promotion, or I want my life to change this way, what I've always seen is there's the line you want to be on. So what needs to shift in you so you're automatically on that line? Like the thing in you that needs to change, then boof, you're on that line. The line is the one that's bright. Something changed as I was doing this, and now I kind of see it like apps on a phone or apps on a tablet. So the way my iPad works is that if I can have multiple applications, I could have my email open, I could have, I don't know, Facebook, I could have a browser like Chrome, or, I could have a lot of things open. And then there's a place where I can see all the apps and I can just swipe them away if I want to close them, for instance. And I can tap the one that I want open. So if you're not used to technology, another way would be if I had a whole bunch of sheets of paper that were kind of different states. If I thought about, like, what am I going to do tomorrow? One sheet could say I'll go to the beach. Another one could say I read a book. Another one could say, I don't know, have a hamburger. They're all the different possibilities. And I could say any of the sheets that I don't want, I could just sort of crumble them up and either burn them or throw them away or rip them to pieces or whatever. So what I'm left with is the ones that I choose. And then I can say, that's the one I'm going with. Okay? And then what happens is it's like the state that goes with that one I'm choosing, then it's like I bring it into me. And it's up to me to accommodate whatever that shift is. So it's almost like it goes in the other direction. If I'm saying, here's the line I want to be on, here's what needs to shift in me, I end up on the line. It's like the shift happens, then the alignment with the line happens. What I'm doing now is like I'm saying, oh, there's the one I want. I'm bringing that into me, so that's true now here. It is, it's harder because it's not allowing any kind of stepwise refinement. It's like, bang, we're doing this. Because it's harder, you have to be gentler with it. So one of the things that's happening is I'm saying, not that, not that, not that. I'm literally discarding these potential futures and saying, nope, not doing that. And then the ones I choose, I'm looking at like, there, that's the one I want. And I do that based on what it feels like. Because we've talked before about when you want to manifest, you manifest with feeling. What do you want to feel like? If you want to feel happy, then you practice feeling happy. Practice feeling happy, you become like a magnet, and that brings the happy stuff to you. Okay? It also builds your muscles for feeling happy by building those receptors. So now what I want you to think about is, what feeling or feelings would you like to add to this light you're using to tune yourself right from conception all the way through to here? You're tuning how your body expresses, you're tuning yourself, you're tuning your life. So for instance, you might want to add confidence. You might want to add a feeling of choice, of prosperity, of creativity. Think about what feelings you would like to add. And maybe type them in as they come to mind, and we'll share them. Feeling love for yourself. That's a great one. Love for all of yourself. All of yourself. Feeling free. Feeling creative, safe, and confident. Confidence, joy, happy being you, knowing who you are and cherishing who you are. Think about all of this tuning into that light, and it's going through all of these versions of you, and it's going into this reprogramming of how your body works and how your energy works, how you work, how you are. And as this tuning happens, what you're going to find is more and more of this old emotion is going to purge from all these different variations of you. So all of these different things are going into this light, And in the same way, let it go right back to that moment of conception and focus on tuning that fetal self, tuning the infants, feeling love for people. That says, feeling love for people in a certain professional area I never liked before. Ah, I see. So opening to loving all kinds of people, even people that you did not like before. I get it. And see, when you do that, what you're doing is you're saying, loving the areas of myself I was never willing to love before. So that's kind of cool, right? So putting all of this tuning into that light, think about letting it retune the body, retune the the design of your body and the design of your function, going through all of these, starting with the fetus, go right back there, really go deep with the fetus, get it all tuned, then the babies, then the toddlers, work your way up through time, through the child. Notice tons and tons of old emotional stuff is coming out. Let the fire help it flow and go. Notice if there's physical reactions. Notice if stuff bubbles up, because it always means something. The power of the group is that somebody will find the bit that's being stuck. Feeling like I have enough. Yes, that says finding more of me to love. Yes. Oh, yeah, finding yourself open to others' experiences without having the answers. That's it exactly. You don't have to solve this. It's not your journey. And that's the respect piece. It's part of letting go of the outcome. Being satisfied where I am, feeling safe and calm and right. Margot says, pain in the heart and in the back, pain in the right temple. Oh, tight chest. Okay. Tight chest, pain in the heart and in the back, and pain in the right temple. Hold on. Okay, so the heart stuff is literally heartbreak. So there's kind of a lifetime of heartbreak of not having lived this. So pause a moment and give yourself compassion in that light that's flowing through. Give yourself compassion and forgiveness for having taken on all of this stuff. And the right temple pain is part of the opening, the knowing. Michelle says third eye ache and right physical eye ache is the same thing as Margot's right temple. This is all opening the knowing. It's allowing yourself to know. So be really aware whenever you do this, you're stepping up your intuition, you're stepping up your kind of psychic abilities. So be willing to have the knowing that goes with it so that you can be strategic and you can protect yourself and like that you can have functionality. Like I've always said, I don't want visions when I'm driving, thank you, because it's dangerous. Your third eye has an eyelid. Okay. Tony says, my cheekbones are shifted left. So check and see, is that one of those things like, how if you get orthopedic shoes and your feet feel weird? Is it that they're actually going where they belong and it just feels strange because it's not where they were? Because I think this is your eyes it's actually your eyes that have shifted. So I think most people are having an eye thing, and where they feel it is. Oh, and there's some smell stuff going on. There's knowing stuff from smell as well. So it's the alignment of this stuff in you're removing blockages is what I think is going on. I'm not convinced that having a conscious awareness of more smells is not necessarily a pleasant thing. Can we have can we have conscious knowing without having to smell all that stuff? We'll see. I refuse to limit it, so I'm going to suggest it without, you know, I don't want to create anything that would put a block. So third eye has an eyelid. Can the sensory perception kind of have like an eyelid too? So you have the knowing without having to be aware of the stink. You have to smell people's sphere. Okay, so what I'm getting is if it's not overwhelming, it's not overwhelming. All right. Part of the adjustment. That'll be interesting. Oh, to track the rabbit. That's good. In case we have to hunt rabbits, we'll be able to smell them. Okay, that's funny. Michelle Smith says she lost a bunch of sense of smell and would be happy to have it back. I suspect that may be going to happen. Yeah, the jaw feels weird too, hey? It's not just the cheekbones. I think you kind of have to pause and check in a week and see if your face looks totally different, because I think a lot of things are moving around here. Mind you, there's probably a lot of emotion in these things too, right? Like, because if you suppress the emotion that comes from the smell, like you might hold it in your face, or if you like, there's certainly a lot of suppressed aggression is held in the jaw and in the neck. So all of that is gonna. We all need to go see Tony and get a massage to help us work it all out through our body. Marie says, and sadness in the cervical diaphragm. Oh, that makes total sense. Yeah. And that's part of all this emotion releasing. Michelle Smith says, yay, Tony is awesome. Yep. Well, tightness, sadness, it's all like one's the sensation and the other's the feeling, right? Wow, everybody's so tired. So listen, you guys, you need to be aware you're tired. Yeah, Maurice is saying it feels like when you're told to shut up and holding stuff in. That makes sense. Now, because it's in the cervical diaphragm, consider how often were you kind of told to shut up and hold stuff in during sex? Literally. Whether it was said or whether it was your own expectation or your own perception or, right? Pelvic diaphragm, cervical. Oh, I see. So cervix versus cervical in the neck. Well, I'm willing to bet it's both. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's both. Well, okay. We're clearing stuff from the entire body. Oh, isn't that funny? So Marie's meant, yeah, she meant in the neck and the throat, and I heard in the pelvis. Heard, saw, whatever. They do mirror each other. Hey, your how your head sits on your neck and your pelvis all mirrors. So both. So and okay. So if we held things in during sex, for instance, uh, or even sexual attention or sexual tension between people or between people who are around us, how much of that, ends up getting held in the neck and discomfort and hunched shoulders and all that kind of stuff. So all of that. So think about as all this light is spinning through, think about it sweeping and sweeping like the baby would know that. Every version of you would know that and know it in different ways, in different interpretations, in different, I mean, the baby might just consider it fear. Uh, Whereas an adult version of you in, however many, yesterday, today, 10 years ago, whatever, might have totally different interpretations, totally different contexts. The bottom line is let it all go. Let it all go so you're allowed choice, so you're allowed knowing, so you're allowed to deal with it on your own terms. And you don't have to know what that means because part of this is allowing yourself to have more information, allowing yourself to decide what strategic is, what caring is, what being cared for is. Wow, that just a whole bunch of stuff going out of the spine, out of the pelvic girdle, out of wow. Layers upon layers upon layers. That's what I love that about this group that we can go all these different places and as the energy shifts, different pieces become available, right? And then we're able to access them and release them. And some of that is the power of doing it as a group because everybody provokes everybody and some of it is just the sheer volume of energy when we all come together to do it. I love it. Like I can work this group and I don't have to hold back. But you are tired. Notice that. I mean, you may not feel it. You may feel it now and you may feel it later, but beware you're tired and just give yourself extra rest. It's funny because it looks like we sit around and chat. And let's just rewrite our entire body and you're allow it to take the months it's going to take because otherwise, you'll make yourself ill. Believe me, I can testify. Really unnecessary to make yourself ill. I haven't done that in so many years. I was shocked. It's so long since I did it that I didn't see it coming. How perfect, right? Okay, so there's one last piece. So keep the light flowing. One last piece I want to wing in there because, minutes. Um, when you are sandbagged, often the feeling that comes next is that you have to play catch up. So, something comes up, you didn't see it coming, now you have to scramble to deal with it. Okay? So there's that catch up feeling. Okay? Yeah, hold on. Um, so the catch up feeling is something that tends to be pervasive in our lives. We feel like there's never enough time, there's never enough energy, you're always trying to juggle stuff, blah, 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 blah. And so, I think this is all hooked together and you don't need it. So that feeling of playing catch up is a feeling of not enough. It blocks abundance. So, it blocks abundance of all the resources, time, energy, everything. And it comes from all this sandbagging. So as you release all this sandbagging stuff, then you can release all of the stuff that's attached to catch-up programming. And that has a whole bunch of emotional programs and patterns. So just think about all that catch-up stuff, let it go. You may still have something to happen that you didn't see coming. Well, rather than play catch-up, you go, okay, so the information has changed. Now I choose. Because if you're choosing, there's nothing to catch up. You're deciding, this is what I'm going to do with my resources, my time, my whatever. There is nothing to catch up. There's only choosing what you're doing and choosing how you're moving forward. The perception of catch up is a perception of victim. It's a perception of lack. It's completely unnecessary. And it is a symptom of all of this thing that we've been clearing. So just allow all of that to go too. And again, releasing all of the catch-up stuff, releasing all of that lack stuff that goes with it, and this, trying to scramble or having to juggle, all of that can go because it strictly is simply a choice. What you're going to do is simply a choice. It's just new information. There's always new information. There's always new information. There's nothing to catch up. It's with ease. And allow that right from that moment of conception all the way through. Allow all that emotion to flow and go, and allow all of this. That's it. See? Wow, that was easy. That says inside, itchy inside the left ear, which is a chronic issue when you have any sugar. Had some dark chocolate beginning of the evening. Inside the left ear. So again, this is about knowing. It's manifesting as something that's hearing, but it is specifically about knowing. Whether you hear something or see something or simply intuitively have an awareness of it, it's knowing. And so sugar is an anesthetic for emotion. Yeah, I don't even think it matters which ear. Because she said sometimes it's the right. Sugar is an anesthetic for emotion. So if you have something with, if I have a mango or if I have an ice cream or whatever, it doesn't have to be because I don't want to feel. It could be because I just like it. The thing is, most of the time we're reacting and we crave it because we don't want to feel. And this is the process. So the resistance to knowing is the resistance to feeling. So it's allowing yourself to deal with it, allowing yourself to deal with what you feel, allowing yourself to give it space and to have value. So it's worth your time. He says Margot just put out a big bowl of dark chocolate and 2 white brownies. Estrella says, why do I want my head covered? Estrella, I want to go back to the fetus. So that's literally when you have that urge of wanting your head covered, it's like, I want to go back inside. It's the resistance to living your life. It's the resistance to the stuff that goes with it, to feeling, to having the experience. So it's like if I go back inside, the experience is muffled. I'm not engaged in life. So more comfort, more owning the choice of living it. And so I'm worth my time. That's a great motto. I like it. I'm worth my time. We're so used to dismissing our emotion and calling other things more important. Like the laundry is more important than your emotion, for God's sake. Like really. And so if you think, well, I have things to get done. How do you sort that priority? Like what's the most important thing to get done? You think, if I have 10 things to do in a day, and they're all important, where would you put dealing with your emotion on that list? Would it even be on the list? Would it even make it? Pat says she's processing the worth your time thing. Yes, you've been on that one for a while. Judy's getting a chill in her arms and her upper body. Yes. Yep. So what if, just for practice, just for fun, as an idea of practice, just to kind of observe yourself, because it's always interesting to observe yourself. You know, probably in the course of your day, you have sort of mental checklists or to-do lists or plans or however it is that you kind of lay out your day. What if for the next few weeks you just kind of notice if you can, are willing to insert space and time for your emotion in those plans, processes, to-dos. Just notice what happens if you think about that. You say, oh, here's 5 things I want to get done today. Where and how can you put your own emotional state into that? Yeah, that'll be a fun exercise. Just observe how it works for you. Okay, so just so you know, we have this Owning Your Fire page. It's hidden on the site. So if you go to the website, the TTLO Inc. website, and in the search you put Owning Your Fire, that page will come up. It has the schedule on it, and it has the links for remote and all that kind of stuff. If you want to put comments, like if you want to go on and say, well, this is what happened when I tried to do this, you can put comments. They wait for me to approve them because, people put stupid things that aren't valid. But I will. I mean, I'm pretty good at going in and approving them. Um, so you have a place that those comments can be if you want to do that. Also, because the recordings are available for the whole year, most of the recording links will be there. This one will only be available to the people who attended because this one was optional and not everybody attended. Well, most of you did, but a couple didn't. So the February and March ones, you'll get them in an email, so keep them. I mean, yes, we can resend them to you, but you're probably going to want them. This was a big night. The regular ones, you can just get them off the page. Okay, so all of these versions of you are in this ball of light. Think about letting this light doing integration and detox. You've been doing all kinds of release. And then allowing all of these versions of you to come back inside and to bring this ball of light in with them. And I would keep that light spinning inside you. Michelle Smith, she said, I've been doing that for a month now, aiming for my happy so my house is a mess. Good for you. Pat says, I'll know I made the shift when I don't look at Facebook before meditating. It could be just a little mindless entertainment. It's not a negative. Okay. Hold that light inside you. Everything's inside. Okay. Now pay attention to your body and getting yourself grounded. For those of you who have to go somewhere, one of the cool things about doing this like this way is that a lot of you don't have to go somewhere. You can just kind of, flake. But for those of you who have to drive or go somewhere, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, have something to eat, have a 2-bite brownie. That's not a bad thing. Make sure you're nice and grounded before you try and travel. This has been a very cool night. We did great. I love you too. I love this group too. You're very welcome. Yes, it was awesome. Yes. And good night. I will see you in a month.